I noticed when you're asking about Caitlin a lot, you bring up other rookies as well.
No league's ever about one player. That player could get hurt or whatever. So I think it's just to give recognition that in sports, people watch for compelling content and rivalries. And you can't do that alone as one person.
This is not just another sports story. This is a profound and chilling warning shot fired across the bow of an entire league. It stands as a stark cautionary tale about how the toxic combination of unchecked arrogance, breathtakingly short-sighted leadership, and one single, unforgivable mistake can completely and utterly dismantle a potential empire before it ever even had the chance to truly rise and claim its destiny.
Never seen a company fumble the bag so hard like the WNBA fumbled Caitlin Clark. It sucks that so much of it was riddled with so much drama and so much negativity.
The WNBA didn't just hold the golden ticket in its hands. It clutched a generational star who was not only a titan on the hardwood, but pure, unadulterated cultural currency. Caitlin Clark wasn't merely a player piling up points. She was a movement, a brand, a phenomenon who single-handedly dragged millions of fresh eyes into the world of women's basketball almost overnight. For a league that had spent nearly 3 decades desperately clawing for mainstream attention, this was supposed to be their crowning moment, their definitive breakthrough, their ultimate validation. And yet, instead of embracing her as the savior who could rewrite the sport's very future, they treated her as if she were completely disposable. In the process, they committed a strategic blunder so monumentally catastrophic that it may cast a dark shadow over the league for decades to come. What began as a modern fairy tale has now twisted into an all-out war, and Caitlin Clark is taking her revenge. Her weapon of choice? Not shouting into microphones or venting on social media, but something far more devastating: leverage. She is systematically exposing the WNBA's staggering incompetence in the only place that truly matters, the boardroom. And the best part? The sharks are already in the water, and they smell blood. Rival leagues, opportunistic billionaire investors, and even celebrities far removed from the world of sports all recognize the one truth the WNBA stubbornly refuses to admit: Caitlin Clark is bigger than the league that houses her. So how did everything so spectacularly unravel? How did the WNBA mishandle the most electrifying athlete in years so badly that her rookie and sophomore seasons became less about triumph and more about a profound betrayal? Stick with me, because once you see the numbers, the disrespect, and the colossal offers already rolling in from outside the league, you will realize this wasn't simple mismanagement. This was organizational malpractice. This was the kind of catastrophic blunder that rewrites history books for all the wrong reasons. When Clark first stormed onto the national stage, it didn't feel like a typical top draft pick arriving. It felt like a cultural detonation. From the moment she began torching defenses in college, Clark wasn't just breaking records, she was shattering the very definition of what women's sports could be in America. Each game became a must-see event. Ratings didn't just rise, they skyrocketed. Her highlights spread like wildfire. Kids all across the country were jacking up logo-range threes on playgrounds, mimicking her signature style. She was more than an athlete, she was a cultural symbol. By the time draft night arrived, her story was already larger than life. This wasn't just the WNBA selecting another talented guard. This was the coronation the league had been waiting for. It was lightning in a bottle, a single player strong enough to drag an entire sport into the mainstream consciousness. The impact was not gradual, it was immediate and seismic. Tickets for Indiana Fever games didn't just sell, they vanished in hours. Resale prices tripled overnight. Entire arenas, many of them for the first time, were brimming with fans attending their first ever WNBA contest simply because Caitlin Clark was there. She was instant box office. Ratings followed suit, with broadcasts featuring her blowing past anything the league had ever seen before. Attendance records crumbled, merchandise sales exploded. Even casual sports fans who hadn't cared about the WNBA in years were now glued to Clark's every single move. In a matter of months, she had single-handedly accomplished what 2 decades of slogans, rebrands, and marketing campaigns had failed to do. She made the WNBA relevant. It should have been the dawn of a golden age, but what looked like a dream from the outside quickly soured on the inside. Because while Caitlin Clark delivered on every single impossible promise, the WNBA repaid her with a level of disrespect so profound that it will haunt them forever.
Here in the W, we pride ourselves on having a super welcoming,
don't get stoned,
calm, low-stakes environment.
Boston will hoist.
She hit it!
Where communication is highly valued.
Well, it's getting chippy.
Collaboration is always encouraged.
Oh, what a pick!
We are devoted to working extra, extra hard. We've been delivering astounding results since 1997.
Back to back.
Because this is a place where basketball matters.
Beautiful pass and a good catch and finish. Big time!
And if you love
Oh, Enrique!
real
Thomas with the spin!
basketball,
Unforgettable finish!
welcome to the W.
Let's be clear about the numbers, because this is where the betrayal becomes painfully obvious. Her Indiana Fever didn't just improve attendance, they shattered history. By the end of the season, the Fever had pulled over 200,000 fans through the turnstiles. This isn't just an impressive number, it's a league-altering figure, higher than any other team had ever managed. 200,000 people in seats. That's not growth. It's a full-blown revolution. It didn't stop there. National broadcast viewership surged by a staggering 21%. Think about that. For a league that had begged for a shred of attention for decades, this wasn't a blip. It was a lifeline. Clark was a walking, breathing economic stimulus package. Every time she laced up, arenas swelled, merchandise flew off shelves, and television numbers soared. She wasn't just an athlete. She was the very heartbeat of the entire league. And all of this came from a rookie, barely scratching the surface of her prime. Now stop for a second and truly consider how long the WNBA had been searching for this exact moment. For nearly 30 years, they tried every trick in the book: slogans, rebrands, partnerships, a graveyard of failed initiatives. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly the impossible became a reality. She was the singular difference between a league fighting for oxygen and a league finally thriving. She was the goose laying golden eggs every single night, and yet, instead of treating her as the treasure she so clearly was, the league decided to insult her in the worst way possible on her paycheck. Let's lay it bare. Clark's rookie contract was for 4 years, totaling a paltry $338,000. Broken down, that's roughly $85,000 a year. $85,000. That is less than a mid-level marketing manager makes at a tech startup. It's less than many assistant coaches in men's college basketball pocket. And this is supposed to be the salary for the one woman single-handedly keeping the entire league afloat. It was an insult written in black and white. Now hold that number in your head and compare it to the NBA. A #1 overall draft pick across the hall signs a rookie deal worth around $55 million over 4 years. That is not a typo. $55 million versus $338,000. That isn't a gap. It's a chasm, a canyon of disrespect. Clark wasn't being underpaid. She was being fundamentally devalued. Do the math, and she made 162 times less than her male counterpart. Not 10% less, not half as much, 162 times less. That isn't just a wage gap, it is a declaration. It was a message to the entire world. We don't value her. And once that profound disrespect went public, the ripple effect was brutal, because when a league devalues its own star, it signals something far worse. It tells every opponent in the league, she is fair game, she is not special, she is not protected, she's just another rookie. And that is precisely when the disrespect leaped off the contract page and onto the court with violent consequences.
They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court. Instead of playing the game, they got to be drama because they're jealous. Instead of letting their skills speak for themselves, they got to be drama because they're jealous.
Almost immediately, Caitlin Clark became a physical target. Opponents in the league saw the insultingly tiny paycheck. They witnessed the glaring lack of protection from the officials. They absorbed the clear, unspoken message emanating from the league office, and they pounced with predatory aggression. Game after game, she was absolutely mauled. Hard, bruising hip checks, dangerous shoves while she was airborne, an endless barrage of sneaky off-ball hits designed not to defend, but to systematically wear her down. These were not just basketball basketball fouls. They were calculated, premeditated, cheap shots. Her opponents weren't playing basketball against her. They were conducting a brutal experiment to see just how much physical abuse she could possibly survive. And what did the referees do in response? Absolutely nothing. They swallowed their whistles as if they were suddenly allergic to blowing them. The WNBA's head office simply looked the other way. They had no problem whatsoever selling out entire arenas with Caitlin Clark's name emblazoned on the marquee. They absolutely loved plastering her face across every single promotional material. But when it came time to actually protect the very asset that was single-handedly saving their league, they just callously shrugged.
We have heard nothing from the WNBA, absolutely nothing.
Brittany Griner elbowing Caitlin Clark in a crazy way and then calling her a trash white girl.
And Brittany Griner has not commented, which I find significant. I've watched that video countless times, and it sure looks like Brittany Griner says, white girl.
The absolute boiling point arrived during an ugly, now infamous incident that fans still haven't forgotten. Cameras appeared to catch Brittany Griner directing a particularly untoward remark at Clark during a tense moment in a game. The clip spread with the ferocity of a wildfire. Armchair lip readers weighed in. The fan base was apoplectic with fury, and yet the league did absolutely nothing. No investigation, no suspension, not even a token fine. The message delivered through their deafening silence could not have been clearer. Caitlin Clark was completely on her own, and that message was dangerous. Because when referees refuse to protect the player, and when the league refuses to punish offenders, every opponent feels emboldened. Every shove lands a little harder. Every foul gets a little dirtier. The WNBA had sent its brightest star, its sole savior, into battle without a shred of armor, and everyone in the league knew it.
Higher television ratings, higher attendance figures. Ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't come courtesy of a league. It comes courtesy of the players that play in the league. And in her case, she was the most popular, which means she could have helped your bottom line, which means you should have seen that from day one and maximized it. But you didn't do it.
Let's not rewrite history. Think back to what Caitlin Clark was forced to endure in her first 2 grueling seasons. The hip checks delivered with extra malicious intent, the sharp elbows thrown in traffic, the dangerous shoves when she was already airborne, and the constant subtle but damaging off-ball shots to her ribs and hips. With every single game, the physical punishment relentlessly piled up, and with every single game, the referees looked the other way, while league executives hid behind a wall of cowardly silence. Her body finally broke, not because she was fragile, and not because she couldn't handle the competition, but because the very system designed to protect her never once did its job. This injury wasn't bad luck. It was the inevitable, predictable result of systemic negligence. And in that moment, the WNBA didn't just lose its brightest star, they revealed to the entire world that they were fundamentally incapable of protecting the one person who had saved them from the brink of irrelevance. But here is where the entire story pivots. As Clark sat sidelined, rehabbing from an injury the league had allowed to fester, others were watching. Rival leagues, investors, billionaire entrepreneurs. They saw the WNBA's golden goose, battered and limping, left completely unprotected by the very institution that had cashed in on her name on every ticket and every jersey. And unlike the WNBA, these outsiders understood her true worth. They weren't vultures, they were visionaries. And as soon as Caitlin Clark went down, the real power players began to circle. They weren't waiting to scavenge the remains. They were preparing to offer her something the WNBA never would: respect, protection, and a contract that actually matched her astronomical value. Ironically, what looked like her lowest point became the very spark for her greatest leverage. The WNBA thought it had Clark completely boxed in. They foolishly believed that her rookie contract bound her, trapped her in a system that could underpay her, exploit her, and still force her to smile, lace up, and continue carrying the entire league on her battered shoulders. What they didn't realize was that the injury changed absolutely everything. It didn't weaken her, it exposed them. Suddenly, the entire balance of power shifted. Doors that had been firmly shut for years flew wide open. The first tremor came from a bold challenger, Unrivaled, a new 3-on-3 league founded by stars Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, with legendary coach Gino Auriemma deeply tied to its vision. Unlike the WNBA, Unrivaled didn't see Clark as a cost to be contained. They saw her as a cornerstone. They put an offer on the table that turned heads instantly for $1 million per year, plus something far more important, an equity stake in the league itself. This wasn't just a paycheck. This was ownership. This was legacy. This was control. For the very first time, Caitlin Clark wasn't being treated like just another draft pick in a long line of rookies. She was being treated like a partner, someone who could actively shape the future, not just dribble inside of it.
And everybody talk about other NBA and WNBA players not being appreciated. Nobody insulted them. Nobody dismissed their contribution. We were simply saying, despite the contributions for years and years and years, a lot of people didn't care, fair or not, until Caitlin Clark came along.
And that right there was already more respect than the WNBA had shown her since day one. The absolute brilliance of Unrivaled's proposal wasn't just the number, it was the profound message it sent. They weren't just saying, we'll pay you to play, they were declaring, we'll invest in you as the face of the future. That alone would have been enough to shake the entire industry. It proved what furious fans had been screaming all season. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another star, she was the league. And if the WNBA wouldn't treat her that way, someone else would. But that, as it turned out, was only the appetizer. The main course came from a completely unlikely source, someone far outside the traditional basketball machine, a cultural icon who had built an entire empire on disruption. Just when it seemed like the story couldn't possibly get worse for the WNBA, it did, because Ice Cube entered the conversation, and his offer made the league's treatment of Clark look like a cruel, pathetic joke. At first, people dismissed the whispers. Cube's Big Three league paying Caitlin Clark millions for a short-term deal. It sounded like pure tabloid fantasy. Some fans thought it was just posturing, a simple publicity stunt. But then the numbers came out, and they were undeniable. The official offer was for $15 million, not for 4 years, not for 40 games, not for grinding out an entire WNBA season. No, $15 million for a single 10-week stretch of basketball. Pause and let that number sink in. The WNBA locked Clark into a 4-year rookie contract worth just $338,000 total, barely $85,000 per year. And Ice Cube walked in and said, how about $15 million for 10 weeks? That isn't a negotiation. That is a public shaming. That is someone standing on a rooftop with a bullhorn yelling to the entire world that the WNBA has absolutely no clue what its most valuable asset is worth. This wasn't just about Clark's bank account, it was about optics. The Big Three didn't just outbid the WNBA, they exposed it. They proved that a rapper turned businessman understood Caitlin Clark's market value better than the very league that was being propped up on her shoulders. That $15 million figure didn't just dwarf her paycheck, it obliterated. And overnight, the narrative flipped. The WNBA wasn't protecting Clark. They weren't empowering her. They were undercutting her. And now the receipts were out in the open for everyone to see. This wasn't a simple contract discrepancy. This was revenge. Revenge written in dollar signs. Revenge on a league that thought they could get away with paying pennies while raking in gold from her image. And suddenly the power dynamic shifted forever. Caitlin Clark didn't need the WNBA anymore. But the WNBA, they couldn't survive without her. For months, league executives had operated under a dangerous illusion. They thought Clark was locked in, trapped, with nowhere else to go. They figured they could take her for granted, because what else could she do? Then Ice Cube dropped the $15 million bombshell, and everything changed. That number wasn't just about money, it was a declaration of independence. It validated everything her fans had believed since day one. Caitlin Clark's true worth dwarfed the WNBA's wildest imagination. She wasn't a 6-figure player. She wasn't even a 7-figure player. She was an 8-figure superstar. And the most humiliating part, she had gotten there without ever asking for their approval. Think about the symbolism. The WNBA marketed Clark as the face of its future, but never gave her the treatment that came with that title. Cube didn't just pay her. He validated her. He told the world, "You're not crazy for believing this woman is worth everything." He confirmed that the WNBA had no clue how to handle its golden goose, and that validation, that external stamp of respect, is where the real revenge begins. Because the damage isn't whether Clark accepts the contract tomorrow. The damage is that the offer now exists. It hangs over the WNBA like a storm cloud. Every press conference, every boardroom meeting, every sponsor call, there's that number, $15 million. It's in the room whether Kathy Engelbert likes it or not. And with that single move, Caitlin Clark gained something no WNBA player had ever truly held before: leverage. Leverage to demand protection. Leverage to demand real respect. Leverage to negotiate not just her salary, but her role in shaping the future of women's basketball. And that is the league's ultimate nightmare, because once a player realizes she doesn't need the institution anymore, the institution loses all control. The WNBA can't put Caitlin Clark back in the box, not after Cube broadcasted her true worth through a megaphone. The league thought it owned Caitlin Clark. The truth? She now owns the future of the sport. This was never just about basketball. It was about vision. It was about respect. It was about a league that held the keys to its own salvation and somehow managed to drop them straight into the sewer. Clark walked in as a once-in-a-generation gift, a ratings magnet, an attendance surge, a jersey selling machine. She gave them everything. And what did she get in return? A rookie deal that insulted her. Silence as refs swallowed whistles. Indifference when opponents turned games into free-for-all wrestling matches. And absolute nothing when ugly racial slurs echoed across the court. They didn't just undervalue her, they betrayed her. Now comes the price. Caitlin Clark's revenge isn't about throwing shade in interviews. It isn't about cryptic tweets. It isn't even about dominating the stat sheet. Her revenge is leverage. It's rival leagues lining up with offers of millions, ownership stakes, and the one thing the WNBA never gave her: respect. Ice Cube's $15 million bombshell didn't just shake the market, it flipped the entire balance of power. The WNBA thought Clark needed them. The truth is, they needed her. And now, for the first time, a single player controls the fate of an entire league. So the question is simple: when her contract ends, does Caitlin Clark stay loyal to the institution that disrespected her? Or does she walk away, taking her millions of fans, her economic clout, and her cultural weight somewhere else? The WNBA had its chance. They had their savior. They had the golden moment every struggling league dreams about, and they fumbled it. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the WNBA to cement her legacy, but the WNBA, they may have just lost their future. Let us know down in the comments below if you think Caitlin should leave the WNBA. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.